Aje. Welcome back to the Sisi Wanaume podcast, the number one podcast on all things men.
Niaje, and welcome back to the Sisi Wanaume podcast with me, Salif Nyambok. This is a safe space for the Kenyan man on a journey of self-discovery. This is episode 2, all about grief. Now, I'm going to be real with you. Grief sucks. Inabo. Cause inakumak, and no one ever prepares you for how life itakutreat after hao watu wenye unapenda wameenda. Whether it's a loved one, whether it's family, whether it's a friend, a spouse, a boss, name it. Now, African societies, the Kenyan society in general, sometimes may treat men differently after grief as compared to our female counterparts. And I will say this, that sometimes grief may be seen as a stepping stone for young men or for men in general. And when it happens, you'll almost find an African relative of some kind. Atatokea tu, kama wewe ulikuwa firstborn and you've now lost your folks, atakuja tu aseme, unajua kila kitu inakuangukia wewe sasa. Anyamaze aende. Alafu, if you are a widower, you've just lost your wife, atakuja bado aseme, you know you're the one who now has to take responsibility for these kids. Aende. Now, I don't really blame them saying it. I think the part in si ukosea kama wa Africa is the fact that we choose this moment where somebody is grieving to drop this bomb of a revelation on us without so much of counseling or prep or any encouragement of how a person can really decompress from the feelings of grief. Because grief is such a surreal experience. It is something that is so out of body because it comes from outside yourself. You don't expect your world to be rocked like that. It's not natural. It's nona. So I want to be real with you, and that's what this podcast is about. I have lost many people in my life currently. I've lost both my parents, my mom and my dad. I've lost friends. I've lost my grandmother, my grandfather. Lost my grandmother on my mom's side. I've lost my cousin. And all these deaths affect you differently as a person. But specifically looking at the stages of grief, which so many psychologists have quoted, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, I would say the one that took me down this spiral in the most clear way was my mom's death. And reason being, I was raised by my mother, and she was my rock, my caregiver, more or less. Alisimamia kila kitu. So I watched my mom agonize for a whole year. Like, aligonjeka kwanza akakuwa mgonjwa after a mess up with surgery, and she was sick the whole year. Having somebody who's sick in the house does something to you, by the way. And especially when they're not getting better. You know, you watch somebody go from being this strong person, anakuja anakuwa bedridden, anakonda, anaanza kuacha kukula, anaanza kuacha kukua in society, yani. Until it just reaches a point where even the room when you enter, it's just darkness, you know. And I feel like that did something to me psychologically. But I think in my head, I never really thought that my mom would pass. So when she passed, after I finished my Form 4, I went through the same thing that everybody else, I think, might go through in this African society. Relatives, friends, family gathered in the home. They came in bulk numbers. The news spread like wildfire. It was highly, publicized. I don't even know where guys got the information. But yeah, guys came and our house was full. But now you see that party of grief normally does not last long. And at a point, these people normally leave. So, stage one, denial. I happen to be a guy who inherited some money from selling our family vehicle. And when I got this money, I mean, to me, it just looked like, mom has gone for a vacation somewhere or a long trip and she's going to come back. I don't think in my head I had really processed that mom is gone, and I need to think correctly. So imagine the shock that we continued living the way that we lived before with my nanny. We got a different place, but vibe ilikuwa ile ile tu. We'd have dinner together, we'd talk, we'd remember her. But life was more or less being sustained at the same level, which wasn't sustainable if you think about it, because sasa pesa yenye nimebaki nayo is like about 1 point something M, and that's now supposed to take you through your whole life. It's a wild, wild thing. And especially without any sikuwa na financial training, mi sikuwa nimeongea na masa kuhusu biashara, nothing like that. I was a sheltered kid and I had grown up well off, so I didn't really think that money had to be gotten from somewhere. I thought it was like employment or something like that, yeah? So I lived in denial. I lived in denial of the fact that my mom had gone. And this kept on being sustained until madangu the money that she left, ikaisha. Or ikaanza kuisha. So at this point in hiyo do imeanza kuend, now I get into stage 2, anger. And you remember from the previous episode, I had told you that I had an experience of shame just before my mom passed, because I lost my virginity, I think 2 days after KCSE, and 2 weeks my mom passed on. So you can imagine I was dealing with the fact that I've messed my body up, and at the same time now this has happened to me. So subconsciously I was blaming myself for so many things. I was like, I'm angry at myself. I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I leave the house? I should have been taking care of my mom instead of going to gratify my own useless wants that have led me nowhere. And that anger kept on boiling inside me. And initially I lashed out at my family members who came to try and assist me at the time. And, they would come and I would be like, I don't know you. I don't have to listen to you, because this person is maybe your uncle, this person is maybe your aunt, this person is maybe somebody who has not been in your life, but now they've come in and they're trying to initiate that discussion. And I wasn't having it, because, I was almost blaming them. I'm like, my mom was sick for a whole year. None of you people showed up. And now suddenly that she's gone, you want to act like, there's compassion here. And I didn't think that was a real thing. So my anger manifested itself in that way. Eventually, when that wasn't enough, I started getting into like substance abuse. And that now started sending me down spirals where I would start maybe bargaining and be like, if maybe I hadn't done this would not have happened. If I had just done the right thing, she would still be alive. I'd even come up with some crazy theories that, look, maybe I'm being punished by heaven or God because I've not been a good Christian. And you can't think like that, by the way, because the human mind will always try to make sense of kenina happen, because hizi feelings huoverwhelm mtu. Unalose mtu hata we mwenyewe hujui unaanza wapi. Haujaienda hata shule ya there's no school of life. We're all experiencing this thing first time. So, after you go through all these stages where you're now trying to play around with the thoughts. Now comes the crushing blow. And I think for me, my depression hit time yenye do iliisha. Time yenye nilijipata, almost like I'm now at a position in time where I'm looking back and I'm like, maybe I should have invested that money. Maybe I shouldn't have used it to go to school or take care of my nanny. Maybe I should have, maybe. And while you're depressed now, you keep on hitting at the things that you've done. I found myself talking bad about my music. I found myself saying that I don't even want to listen to this music anymore. I want to delete it. I pulled it down off of platforms. And it's a crazy experience because there's nobody who's there to catch you when this thing happens to you. And in depression, actually, psychologists have proven this, that you're more susceptible to mental health illnesses after you are grieving than a person who is not. It's more likely that you can develop PTSD, OCD, anxiety disorders, and many others just as a result of this experience that has happened to you. And if not checked, it could go suicidal. I know many people who have lost their reason for living after they lose the person that they were with. Because you don't want to do anything. You don't see hope in anything. And depression sometimes can really affect you because, as in my example before, unaona mimi I fought with my family. So at some point, guys stopped talking to me and I was isolated. And when I was isolated, I got really sad. And in that sadness, I thought of many things. I really thought of so many things. I played around. I had a whole dark mood board. I'm grateful that I've never been the type of person who harms myself, but I've seen people who go through that kind of thing after they lose somebody that they care about. And I empathize with them. This pod is more or less to just try and create an awareness of what it is that you might be feeling after you lose this person who is very, very dear to you. Now, these 4 stages that I've described to you did not happen like in 1 week. No, it's a span that went over a long period of time, a couple of years for me. And it took me a long time to actually undo some of this damage that was caused by this period, because it leaves you feeling empty. But at some point, I think once time, and I think that's why they say that time is a great healer, you will reach a point where you have some kind of balance with what has happened. I honestly feel like grief is a never-ending process, and nikitu haitai enda. You just choose how best you can let it come into your life and how you can own up to it. There's some people who, after grief, they want to become mysterious. They don't want to be marked with this thing because kila mtu mwenye anawamita anaanza kuwapatia hii woye. And I know for guys, man, it sucks to be treated like that because it doesn't make you feel good as a person. Men don't like to be babied. I don't like to be babied. So I know it's something that used to irritate me a lot. But I chose to speak about my truth because I thought that it would help other people. And I will give links to some of the platforms where I have shared this story in full detail in case you would want to delve a bit deeper into my personal journey with grief and trauma. But for this specific episode, I was just talking about grief in itself and the stages that it occupies. Now, once you've reached a point where you can at least own up to this grief and say that, yes, this happened, then you will have hit some kind of acceptance. And acceptance carries practice in its own way. There's some people who honor their parents, maybe, or they honor their lost ones or their spouses in one way or another through something that they may do, something that they may do for others, something that they may do for themselves also. So, I mean, it's a journey, and regardless of what form this takes for you, it can be a good way of maintaining practice and assisting you to at least heal and acknowledge that this thing happened to you. So, like for myself, whenever it hits special days, I may go into the photo album and just pull out a special photograph of a certain memory, and I may share this. Normally, it may look like it's a bit of a joke, but relatives who follow me on other platforms may sometimes hop on and say, "Oh, it's a beautiful memory. I remember him during this time, or I remember her during this time, or I remember this person during this time," And it's good that it can also provide some kind of comfort for the society. And yeah, we don't allow our memories to just fade away. So, once again, keep engaging with us on our social, and you can tell me what your grief story is if you feel free to share that information. And I'll be glad to respond to some of it in the comment section. And I will also do an article on the 5 stages of grief, which will be available on our Medium and Substack, where you can go check up more information based off of what we've discussed today. So until next time, peace out.